And so we're very excited to start today's Sync Up sessions with a panel on distributing your music independently via apps. And we have two app developers. Well, there are many other things besides that, but that is what they're here to talk about. And we have Tim Quirk from Freeform Development. And Alexander Ebert, who is perhaps best known as the singer of Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, but also the developer of the app Skrapps. Sorry. Tim, since you're closer, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
You've had a long career in digital media and technology. Can you just talk a little bit about your background?
Sure. I started life as the front guy in a punk pop band called Too Much Joy. We self-released our first record in 1987. That got us signed to an indie in '88. Made a record for them. That got picked up by Warner, so spent the rest of the '80s and '90s recording and touring for Warner. Then in 1999, I got caught up in the dot-com boom. I went to work for a company called Listen.com. We built and launched Rhapsody, which was one of the first on-demand music subscription services. I stuck with that for, forever, for like a decade, until 2010. And by 2010, I was still, like from 1999 on, I was convinced that music was moving away from being a product that people buy and sell in discrete units and was turning into a service where people would pay, or hopefully pay, for access to whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, wherever they were. And by 2010, it was kind of clear to me that space was going to come down to, Apple, Google, Amazon, maybe Facebook, we'll see. But I didn't think a little indie like Rhapsody could make it. So I went to Google because they were just getting into online music.
Small company.
Yeah. I was the fifth person hired within the Android team to basically build what became Google Play. And my role there was head of global content programming. So I was basically in charge of the global merchandising team for all the digital content in Play, not just music, but also apps and games, books and magazines, and movies and TV shows. And I stayed there for 4 years, and it was very eye-opening because the developers, all the game developers, were just making gobs and gobs of money. And I'd been in the music business forever, which had just been tanking, since 1999. And so I spent the 4 years I was there trying to figure out what did game developers know that the rest of the, entertainment industry didn't. Why were they making so much money when everybody else was just struggling? And I took all the lessons I think I learned there, and I went off on my own in 2014 to start this company called Freeform Development. And we're basically trying to take all the lessons of free-to-play mobile gaming monetization. I hate that word monetization. It sounds so douchey. But
it does a little.
Yeah, but there's I can't come up with a better word for how to make people money, basically, making music, which is all I ever wanted. And so we're basically taking the lessons of free-to-play mobile gaming, and we're seeing if and how they can apply to the music space.
Free-to-play mobile gaming.
Yeah.
Just, that means exactly.
Yeah, it means, so if you want to go to the slides, this will sort of illustrate my thing.
I'm sorry, they're a little bit cut off,
okay.
But you should be able to see them over here.
Well, the green bars are the music business, global music record. This is the recording industry. Global recorded music business revenue. It peaked in 1999. It was just under $40 billion a year back in '99, and it's been contracting ever since. So it ended 2014 just under $14 billion a year. And gaming in that same time period has absolutely exploded.
So revenue's down by
about 70%.
Yeah.
And it ticked up just over $14 billion at the end of 2015, but we just got those numbers, so I haven't updated the slides yet. But the fact is, it's nowhere near where it was at its peak. And gaming in that same time period, in 1999, the entire global gaming industry was a fraction of the record business, because the record business was so big. And what you see happen by 2014, gaming as a whole is like over $125 billion a year business. And mobile gaming, which didn't even exist as a category in 1999, it's growing so explosively. It ended 2014, it was twice the size of the record business. And so, a lot of people say like, oh, we can't make as much money as we used to in music. Everything's terrible. I wish it were like 1999. I was like, no, you don't. Look at the delta between the 2014 record business numbers and the 2014 gaming numbers. That's where all the missed opportunity is in music. So what those numbers tell me is that people are happy to pay money for online entertainment, for digital content.
But I thought you said free mobile gaming.
Well, that's the thing. So people are willing to pay money, just not in a way that the record business is adapted to. So if you go to the next slide, sort of tried to figure out what gaming knows that the record industry doesn't, and it really boils down to this, to my mind. This is a pyramid, and my job as a merchandiser of music, as a musician, as a record label guy, a publishing company guy, I've always just considered my job pushing people up this pyramid. So what happens is, it doesn't matter if you're a brand new band or if you're Taylor Swift. When you have a new piece of music, there are more people in the world who don't know and don't care about it than who do. So your first job whenever you have a new piece of music is to get as many people as possible just to hear it. And you don't care if they're not paying you money for the privilege. You just want their attention at first.
That's what radio was for.
Yeah. And hopefully your music is good enough that you can get the biggest possible subset of those free listeners to give you a little bit of money for it. So maybe they buy your single. And then hopefully that single is good enough that you get the highest possible subset of them to give you a little bit more money for it. Maybe they buy your album. And then you want the highest possible subset of them to give you even more money. Like maybe they follow you around on tour, or they become a super fan. Like Kiss has been amazing at figuring this stuff out. Like there are people who will get buried in a Kiss coffin, right? So what gaming figured out in around 2010, 2011, is that they embraced the bottom of that pyramid in a way the record industry hasn't yet. They figured out that in the 21st century, free doesn't mean promotion anymore. Free means distribution. They literally give their stuff away for free, and they monetize after the fact. And I watched the entire gaming industry do a 180 on their business model the 4 years I was at Google Play. When I got there, 97% of the games in the Android market were paid. You know, they cost $1 or $5 or $10. And by the time I left in 2014, they were all free. And it started because Rovio, this company that had Angry Birds, they were making a lot of money selling it on in the App Store on iOS. They could not get Android customers to pay for the game. So they were like, what the hell, we'll try a free version. And before they knew it, they were making more money from the free version than they were from the version you had to pay for. And the entire industry just imitated that model and started, innovating around the edges of it, and you wind up with something like Candy Crush Saga, which is just sort of the Ebola virus of freemium gaming. This is the mind-blowing thing about Candy Crush Saga.
I mean, it literally eats your brain.
Well, maybe not literally, metaphorically, but 97% of the people who install Candy Crush Saga never generate a penny in revenue for the developer. And yet that game has made $1 billion a year, 3 years running. One title, $1 billion, only 3% of their audience is generating any revenue. So that's basically what's going on. The gaming industry, starting around 2010, 2011, shifted away from a model where success is measured in terms of total units sold, and towards a model where success is measured in terms of average revenue per user, and how do you grow that over time. So what gaming companies, they're just like expert at pushing people up that pyramid. They cast the widest possible net because their stuff is free, so they get as many possible users as they can. And then they just focus like a laser on the ones that can generate revenue, and they just get more and more money out of them.
And so where does the money come from? How do they get the money out of them?
Well, go to the next slide, and I'll sort of explain how this works.
You have an answer.
I have an answer for how this will work for Freeform. So the way it works in the gaming world is you get a compelling enough version of the product for free. And if you want, you can go all the way to the end of Candy Crush Saga and never pay a penny. It just takes forever, and it's very frustrating. So they sell you extra lives, they sell you power-ups. In Candy Crush Saga, they sell you a lollipop hammer that makes it easier to get from one level to the next. So there's just lots of ways to spend money once you're in the game and once you're addicted to it. So I hate the term gamification. It just sounds like marketing BS to me. So we're not trying to gamify music. We're just taking, at an abstract level, what, if any, of those lessons can be applied to the music space. So what we do at Freeform is we make artist apps, album apps. And there's two main components to it. Our mantra is your album is an app. It's not instead of selling it in iTunes or physically or putting it in Spotify and YouTube and stuff. It's in addition to. But when you make your album an app, it can be a much richer, deeper, more engaging experience. You can have all the stuff that albums had when I was growing up. You can have lyrics, you can have credits, you can have photos. You can have all kinds of stuff that albums didn't have when I was growing up. They can have videos now. They can have virtual reality experiences. You can have direct communication with the artist. So that's part one, is make your album an app. And part two is don't charge for the app. Give the app away for free. Get as many people to install it as possible, and then monetize after the fact. So what we do is, this is an app we made for G-Eazy. It's got all his lyrics in there. He'll be putting some videos in there. We worked with his creative team, so there's a whole bunch of photos. It looks and feels like a G-Eazy experience. We give the app away for free. And the idea is it's up to the artist, it's up to the label how they want to set it, but we recommend if you're distributing your album this way, set all the tracks to 1 free play per day. And then after that free play, they lock. And you have to take some action to unlock them. So that action can be just clicking a buy button, but most people aren't going to click the buy button. So we're looking for actions that fans can take that don't necessarily cost them any money, but do generate revenue for the content owner. So on Android, the hero offer is if you want to unlock the music for free and get a free download of it, just sign up for a free trial of Rhapsody. If you don't want to sign up for a free trial of Rhapsody, there's like 27 other ways to unlock the music. You can apply for a Target credit card. You can like take some Subway marketing survey. The artist sets their own price, but the beautiful thing in Freeform is when you're setting your price, you're not setting a ceiling, you're setting a floor. So basically, I think the G-Eazy album, the floor is $10. So even though fans aren't paying any money to get the music for free, the offers they're seeing, any offer they redeem to get the music for free is generating at least $10. But some of them generate $15, $18, or $24. So as a result, you get more fans because you're giving your music away for free. You get more revenue from every fan than you would have if they'd bought your record from iTunes in the first place. And best of all, you now live in their pocket. You own that fan relationship, and you can get recurring revenue from them over time.
But you're making them buy a Target credit card.
We're making them apply for a Target credit card. But that's just one of...
I thought you said you didn't want to be douchey.
I don't want to be douchey. So the idea is there's lots of different ways to unlock music. All right? A lot of artists aren't going to want to have brands in there. They won't want to be associated with Target. You don't want to do that? That's fine. The idea is just to figure out it's all about artist choice. We're not doing blanket licenses. Artist decides if they want to use the platform. If they choose to use the platform, they decide what music to distribute through it. And then they decide what state their tracks are in. Any piece of content in your app can either be free just by virtue of installing the app. It can be metered, in which case it's free until you hit some parameter, like 1 play per day, or it can be locked from the beginning. And then you choose your unlock action. We're starting with 2, which is just buy or redeem a partner offer, but over time we can add in others like, get the music for free by buying a concert ticket. Get the music for free by joining my fan club, and all of a sudden you're getting $3 a month from your fan. You could get the music for free by donating to the artist's favorite charity, or you could put games in there and you get track 1 by completing level 1 of the game, and you get track 2 by completing level 2 of the game. We're limited only by artists' imagination in this regard. So
where are you in the development and the launch of this product?
Next slide, which is my last slide, and then I'll shut up. We've launched about just over a dozen since June of last year. And I'm happy to report that we're all our initial hypotheses are proving out. People love these. There's thousands of reviews of them, and they've got an average rating of almost 5 stars. It's like 4.83. The conversion rate, which is just how many of the people who install it for free actually generate any revenue. Since I did this slide, it's now up to 8%. So if you're a mobile game developer, you're happy with anywhere between a 2 and a 3% conversion rate. So we've more than doubled that. And I'm really proud of that because I knew at the beginning, like as successful as Candy Crush Saga is, you cannot show me a player of that game who has as deep an emotional connection to that game as they do to their favorite musicians. So we just knew music would convert better. And best of all, and this is what I'm proudest of, while we don't pay per play, we can come up with a proxy, an effective per play rate. You just take the gross revenue that an app generates and you divide it by the total free plays it sees to figure out what's a play worth, what's a play earning you in your Freeform app. So Spotify, as people know, pays about 1/5 of a penny per play. Pandora pays about 1/3 of a penny per play. The average across our dozen or so Freeform apps right now is 34 cents a play. So it's just orders of magnitude better than any other freemium offer out there. And the whole reason for that is we're just giving artists tools to control their conversion funnel of free to paid listeners.
I don't know if any of you folks were here for the panel that we did on Spotify streaming rates last weekend, but we looked at actual Spotify statements that a music publisher provided with us, and it was indeed, people were getting, 0.0007 something dollars to per stream on Spotify. So if you're getting actually 34 cents. Yep. For every stream, that is a huge order of magnitude higher than you would get on a Spotify. Yeah. So is this in full on launch mode?
Yeah,
is it out there and available?
Yeah, there's 12 of these out there right now. G-Eazy has one, Chris Brown has one, Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20 has one. We've got artists in all different genres. Ultimately, what we're doing is we want this to be a self-serve platform. So in conjunction with doing those proof of concept apps, we're working on a tool set that when we launch it, basically you won't have to know me to get a Freeform app. You'll just be able to log in, create an account, and build an app for free, basically. And then we just take 30% of the revenue it generates.
And so you just upload your music and there's a widget that
Yep.
basically turns your music into an app for you?
Yeah, we use WordPress as a metaphor a lot. We want to be the WordPress of digital album packaging, and I like WordPress as a metaphor because sometimes you go to somebody's blog and you're like, oh, they just took the default WordPress template. And other times you go to somebody's website, you don't even realize it's powered by WordPress because it's that customizable. We want Freeform to function the same way, where if you have no coding experience, you want to use our sort of pre-configured templates, you can just upload your content and in an hour, like, have a mobile app. Whereas if you're Bjork or you're Crush Management and you have developers on staff, you just want to plug into our APIs and do your own custom development on top of our sponsor network, you can do that. And then in the middle, and this is what you see with WordPress, we want there to be this thriving third-party marketplace of developers saying, hey, here's a really cool widget for your Freeform app. Here's a great tap-tap game that you can plug into your Freeform app. Here's a great way to do lyric videos in your Freeform app. So that's what we're trying to build.
So how long before people can create themselves a user account and go ahead and start enjoying these monstrously fabulous returns?
That's an excellent question that I'm not stupid enough to answer right now, because if I give a date and then we miss it, I look like an idiot. But soon.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. This is a new way to turn your music into an app and basically allow people to access your music in the same way that they would if they were playing a game, but they're engaging with you, and they are, because they're going to be so incredibly hooked on your music, they are going to voluntarily move themselves up the pyramid and start paying for things because they signed up for a Target credit card or something like that.
That is the idea, yeah. And I mean, the last thing I'll say about this is it drives me crazy if I'm riding a bus and I see somebody with headphones in, and I hear the music leaking out of their ears, and they're looking at their phone and they're playing Candy Crush Saga. As far as we're concerned, if somebody is looking at a screen while they're listening to your music, they should be falling into a world that you have created for them. We're in this really strange moment in time where there's more people listening to more music than ever before, but they're engaging with it in this really shallow way. It's become this background phenomenon, and we want to make it rich and engaging, and we want to foreground the music again. That's what we're trying to do.
All right. Well, thanks, Tim. That's great. I appreciate it. Thanks for explaining that. I think it's a pretty in-depth concept, and I think some of us are going to take longer than others to be able to wrap their heads around it, particularly me. Alex, thank you so much for being here. I know that you just rushed in from the airport. Where are you traveling from?
LA, yeah.
Okay, great. So were you doing shows out there or recording?
Yeah.
Awesome. Did you have a show last night?
Two nights ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
well.
We had 2 shows 2 nights ago, so almost last night. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you for racing in and being here with us and agreeing to do this. And welcome home, because Alex is a New Orleans resident.
It's good to be back.
We're happy about that. So I wanted to ask you to explain your new concept for this app. You told me that it was basically something that grew out of your own, I don't know if frustration is the right word, as a songwriter, performing musician, recording artist, and you just felt that there was something missing, and you had the wherewithal to fill that gap. So why don't you tell us what that was about?
Yeah. The initial frustration was that I make more than 10 songs every 3 years, which is about the album cycle. I write and record probably 100 a year, I don't know, just a guess. And then every 2.5 years or so, I'm expected to boil those down to 10 overly produced songs and then live or die by the success of that. And that doesn't feel, I don't feel like I get to express the totality of my artistic being that way. And meanwhile, that thing I'm supposed to boil everything down to, which is called an album, is disappearing. The album not only is disappearing in terms of sales and the money that it generates, but is disappearing from the public consciousness. They just take them, pull them apart and turn them in, create playlists with one song and another artist, and the album really dissipates pretty quickly after it's purchased. All that leading me to believe that, meanwhile the access model is ascendant, leading me to believe that what about just giving people access to the totality of my work as opposed to an album or this or that. Like they just get 24-hour access to everything I generate whenever I feel like sharing it, and do it like that. And so that was the idea.
So why an app rather than, I don't know, a website?
Well, mobile is inherent immediacy, and I want to be able to impulse upload things. I want people to have it in their pocket so they can get push notifications and experience my excitement when I'm excited, not 6 months down the line, or.
So tell us how it works.
Well, basically, I mean, in real life, it would just work like, from the artist's perspective, I upload something or record something. Not dissimilar to Instagram, how Instagram or Twitter sort of work. Like, when I feel like sharing something, I share something. People get notified if they're following me. So and then there's cool little things I can get into the weeds about. I'll just get into the weeds about 2 of them. Then the way I'm able to create albums, because I still think certain songs have affinity for each other, playlists and whatnot, is just by hashtags. So I can create new albums every time I upload a song or upload a piece of content. And I can put that song into 8 albums if I want to by just creating 8 different hashtags. Or add a song 8 years later to an album I made 8 years earlier, because I know that it belongs with that one, and have these sort of fungible, mutable, living albums, if you will, and then the fans can do the same thing. They can take the songs, create their own hashtags, create their own playlists. So that's one thing, and then the other that's fun, not dissimilar to one of the concepts for what's the name of it? Freeform. Hesitant to bring this up because it's actually, you'll probably think like, well, you'll just start using this, but I think being able to share stuff with people and then have it kill itself after a single play. So for instance, being able to text you a song, or text all my fans a song, or tweet out a song, and then they get to listen to it once, and then it's, it's sort of
Snapchatty?
It sort of obviates that, it's a Snapchat-ish sort of thing, and it obviates the sort of piracy thing to some degree, and also makes it fun, though, and gives you that sort of FOMO for a second,
But is there a revenue model though? Do people? So you can generate some dough from some songs?
So again, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a floor. People pay for access to the totality of like what you're putting out there.
On like a monthly subscription model type thing?
We're trying for a yearly as opposed to monthly, and we're thinking of a $9.99 a year model.
$10 a year?
$10 a year.
That's a deal.
But that's for access to one artist.
One artist, okay.
So that's the model we're starting off with, because I'd like to make artists like, one thing we have in the app is like the stats view is just is on your main frame, So you click stats and you get all your metadata, you see everything, you see what songs are performing well. There's another way, by the way, to be able to choose like, oh, I thought that was a single, you know what I mean? Because you're putting out this stuff before you've released it to the world. This enclave of like people that are using your app before you put it on the radio, probably go through this app first. You get all that data, but of course all the data on who's subscribing, what songs are being played most, all that,
So, can any artist sign up to participate in this? If they, I'm a recording artist and I've got a couple of 100 songs lying around that I would love to monetize, to use that awful word. And hey, let's give my fans the opportunity to hear this music, and if they want to pay $10 a year to have unlimited access, I want that. I want to get in.
Basically, yeah. there might be like a touch of top level curation is like maybe you have to have a verified something or other account, because we can't just let anybody. It can't be like everybody is uploading whatever they want, because we'll have bandwidth issues because we don't have a truncation. So you can upload a 7-minute song if you want. But if you let everybody do that, we'll start paying more money than we're earning.
Oh, and also people could just upload,
Just
anything.
Junk, yeah.
Yeah, hate speech, whatever.
Right.
So so on the user end, you said you basically it's you browse within the app and you have the access to click and
yeah, and you kind of feel a sense of ownership as a user too, I would hope, in that whenever you like anything, it goes to your playlist feed, and then you can create albums and communicate obviously with the artists and do all that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to open this up for questions. If anybody has a question, please use the microphone. Some of you may be more technologically adept than me and may be able to elucidate a little bit. So I'm just curious what are your thoughts on your fellow panelists' concepts here? How do you see similarities or differences in approach here?
Yeah, I'm like really encouraged by what you're doing, because that's exactly the type of thinking that I think artists really need to be doing. And you're treating your art with the respect that it deserves, and you're giving your fans a way to do the same. It's really, I like it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Basically, I think that it's the right way of thinking about it. I think to think. What's amazing to me is that the space is so clustered, except in the mobile space. Really, nobody is like. There's not a lot of mobile distribution platforms that are like artist driven, and that's sort of kind of it really speaks to the sort of. The rigidity and the antiquated thinking of the old model, that they have not moved on this yet.
Well, it's definitely the case that when we started pitching Freeform to labels in particular back in 2014, artist apps, album apps had a really bad reputation in the music industry, because the idea was like, oh, we tried that and it didn't work, and my response to that was, well, it didn't work for two reasons. The first reason was music business made the same mistake it always makes. Once they started putting out mobile apps, they were like, oh, we can charge a premium for this. So rather than saying, oh, we're asking people to change their behavior and experiment with this new thing, maybe we should get them, the best way to get them to try it is to make it free. They're like, oh, we can charge more money for this. Or the second mistake they made was, because licensing is so difficult, a lot of times you'd have an artist app that had no music in it. Right, so like there was a Snoopify app that didn't have any Snoop Dogg music in it, but like you could take selfies and put cartoon doobies in your mouth, and it was like it'd get a lot of downloads but very low engagement, and then people would uninstall them. It was like what we were saying to folks was, as an artist, the most compelling thing you have to offer your fans is your music. So base your app around your music. You wouldn't think it would be that difficult.
And so, Tim, your app is something that artists can self-serve in the same way that Alex, your app is. So we're bypassing the labels altogether.
You'll hear me use the phrase content owner a lot. So
yeah.
it's you don't have to be a label to use it. Basically, whoever owns the masters and the compositions is the person who has to license the technology.
But you don't have to be a label or be signed to a label
Right.
in order to access this. But what's the advantage to a record label? I mean, why would Universal want to use this for one of their artists?
Because right now, the problem the music industry has had is they've always outsourced their free-to-paid listener conversion to third parties. So in the 20th century, they relied on radio to convert free listeners into paying customers. And then toward the end of the 20th century, MTV. And in this century, we've added in YouTube and Spotify and Pandora and all those folks. And those third parties are never going to convert your free listeners into paying customers as efficiently. They're never going to be as motivated to do it as you yourself are, whether you're the artist or the label. So that's the main reason to do it, is all the customers you get through the app, they're your customers. They're not Apple's anymore, they're not Google's, they're not Facebook's, they're not Amazon's, they're yours.
And Alex, I'm guessing that you would agree, because you want to also have a model where you're giving people the opportunity to sample the music for free and then try to encourage them into that $10 a year revenue.
I guess I'm a little more wary of the free tier. Spotify is growing in the U.S., but only in pretty steady proportion, free to paying. They're not. Their onboarding is not working at the moment, from freemium to paying. I do think that people are getting terribly acclimated to free, and it's a bit scary. So I'm a bit more wary of that. We do have. We're very cognizant of sort of the onboarding. You get the app for free. You get to use it for free, but it's something, it's something that as an artist I have like an immediate sort of knee-jerk against, because just the idea that we're saying we should be able to monetize music, what we're saying is we should be able to re-professionalize it. We've lost our profession. Like, to use the word monetize, you use that to monetize something that shouldn't or doesn't usually get money. I'm going to monetize this sock. But this is what I do all day. I mean, this is my occupation, and nothing can be an occupation if you don't, if you can't eat from it.
But people are used to getting some sort of a free sample before they purchase.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you don't get that in stores very often. You don't get to like walk out of Macy's with a suit for like 4 days before like maybe coming back with it. So I think that, I think.
But they'll let you try on one sock in the store.
I mean, if they started doing that, people would never, they wouldn't go to any other store. Every store would have to start doing it. It's like once you let it in, it's hard to stop it. But yeah, I mean, there's one other thing, I guess, that about impulse uploads that I find interesting, which is you end up with material that is unregistered, and that no one has officially sort of declared the owner of certain
You mean
materials.
If an artist writes a song in the middle of the night and says, "Hey, I just want to upload this," and without properly registering with BMI or whatever.
Yeah, without registering it, without going through their label. And what I like about that is that it creates a new problem that a new solution can really sort of be disruptive and help out in a major way with sort of an alternate registry that deals in more blockchain-y sort of like immediate payouts and something a lot more elegant to maybe even matriculate the whole system over too. So that's just this accidental problem/solution that Skrapps creates with it.
One more point. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've got a slightly different take on the free piece, because when I was in the 90s, back when CDs cost like $18, I was always happy as an artist when I saw one of my CDs in the used bin for $9, because I knew there was a new potential listener was way more likely to take a chance on me for $9 than they were for $18. And if I got anything from the label, it was going to be a penny anyway. So there was no difference to me. And over time, as I've watched things evolve with gaming, that's why I start with that chart. Like, mobile gaming is blowing the doors off the music industry by leading with free. And what I realized over time was, this is why I've stressed average revenue per user. The same song is, songs aren't inherently worth 99 cents. The same piece of music is worth different things to different people in different contexts. And the thing that drove that home for me was in 2000, 2001, a side project of my band called Wonderlick. We'd just been recording MP3s and just putting them up on the website for free for about a year. And then an indie label in San Francisco was like, "Hey, we want to put this out as an album." And I'm like, "Okay, well, we need to mix and master them," and we needed about $5,000 to finish the record. And we're like, oh, we can pre-sell the record before it exists to our super fans. So we put it up on the website. We're like, hey, we need to raise the money to finish this record. If you buy it, if you pre-order it now, you can pay whatever you want. And literally, like, you can type 1 cent in here and I'll send you the record. And sort of as an afterthought, we said, anyone who winds up paying more than whatever the average price turns out to be, we'll put your name in the credits. And so as a result, nobody paid below cost. The lowest anybody paid was $5. Lots of people paid $500, right? And so if I averaged it out, the average price to sort of our diehard fans was $34, right? I never would have had the chutzpah to charge $34 for my record, but that's what, in the aggregate, that's what it was worth to the folks who cared about us the most, right? Now, there's only about 2,000 of those people. Most people in the world, like, I'd have to pay them to listen to my music, right? And accepting that is and realizing, like, okay, there are different people in different tiers of that pyramid, and most of them are on the bottom, and they don't care about me. But by leading with free and bringing them into my world, I can identify the ones who will ultimately pay me $34. So that's sort of how I've been approaching both my art and my business ever since.
Awesome. We have a question.
Yeah, I see the validity and the usefulness in both of your applications, but I would like to ask each one of you, how would you say that I, as a mid-level to low-level artist, would use those to leverage whatever people I have that are following me into the way y'all use it is so effectively? You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Well, actually, I see Skrapps as almost particular to the independent artist and I guess the burgeoning, or I wouldn't say low level, but a smaller artist, you know, with a smaller fan base. And the reason, I suppose, is that there's a lot of boons that come with being unsigned. One is that a label isn't taking most of your money, or a bunch of your money. And the other is that, you know, with regard to sort of, you own everything. And you own all that connection with your fans. And generally, fans of an independent artist care much more about actually supporting that artist with money, I've found. If they know that they're supporting, like, a busker that they saw on the street, and that money's actually going to them. I mean, I lived on Frenchman for like 3 years, and the amount of, like, you know, yahoos that would come through and just like start buying CDs of the kids on the street. I don't know if they actually liked that music or they just really wanted to support them, but I think it was a combination of the two. But it's just, they didn't strike me as the kind of people that are going to go into like a record store and buy a bunch of vinyl. They were just like trying to support these young artists, you know what I mean, and feel good about doing something for someone that's trying to do something good. And in that sense, I think, you know, you can cut down on your costs of making CDs and that whole hustle, and instead give someone, you know, like access to all your stuff on an app. They can download the app for free, and then when they pay you, they get little icons like, and it's from you, it's personalized, like, thank you. And they get that feeling built into the UX, like, oh, just like as if I would have bought their CD in person, I know that this money's actually going to them. Because it's not a revenue, it's not a stream share, like a Spotify or something where you kind of got to, well, maybe it's going to them, I don't know, you know. This is more of like an assertive sort of feeling, like I really supported these independent artists. And so from the user perspective, I think it maintains that relationship that fans of independent artists have with independent, like anyone that buys their albums strictly on Bandcamp, and there's a lot of people like that, and Bandcamp is one of those online distributors of independent albums. There's a lot of people that only buy their stuff through Bandcamp because they know that Bandcamp only takes 15% and they pass everything else through the artist. And so that would be the idea as far as independent artists go.
Yeah, and I just say, you know, with any tool, what I always say to artists is it's just a tool. You still have to do all the regular hard work of being an artist in the first place. Job one, you have to make great art. Like everything else flows from that. You have to, you have to play out as much as you possibly can. You have to do all that heavy lifting. This just gives you a way, I wish these tools had existed in the late 80s, early 90s, because my band was, we were touring on the indie rock circuit, and we played to like 500 people in a club, and we'd be lucky if there were 2 copies of our LP in the mom and pop store down the road, right? And this was like, it sounds stupid now, but at the time it was just not done to sell your own records, right? That's what losers did. We were all so stupid about that. We should have been selling records out of the back of the van at the time. We were making all our money from t-shirt sales, but the thought of selling our actual music was crazy. But I just love the idea of being able to be on stage, have a whole bunch of people in a club and say, hey, give them a URL. Say, you can go get my music, and you're not relying on anybody else. It doesn't matter if the label shipped enough copies to the store. It doesn't matter if you have a good distributor. You are your own distributor. So that's the most powerful piece of it to me, is it's a way to get your music into fans' hands instantly. And if you do it right, it's a way of getting them to create more fans for you. Because you can unlock music by sharing it with other people.
Awesome, thank you.
Will folks be able to get both of your apps just through a website as opposed to having to go to the Apple Store or something like that?
Well, for us, we're in both the App Store and iTunes and Google Play. So yeah, you can download them. You can have a QR code at your merch table. You can have you can have it up on your website. But usually, folks are going to get it through the App Store or through Play.
Something that everyone should know, probably already do, Apple takes 30% of any in-app purchase, which is fucking insane. Just fucking completely insane. I mean, they're making 30% of Spotify's money. You know what I mean? Almost. I mean, so anyway, but if you sign up through the web, you get around that. So.
And also, if you're purchasing. If you click buy within one of these Freeform apps, then Google and Apple are taking their 30% cut. But if a fan is redeeming a partner offer, they don't get 30% of that. So we love it. We prefer people to get the music for free because we make more money that way.
How do your apps work in relation to artists who want to put their music in other distribution platforms? So if I want to have my music on iTunes or Spotify or something else, how does this work in relation to exclusivities?
For our part, it's additive. It's non-exclusive. That said, there have been times when we've had a particular sort of marquee named artist. If say Rhapsody is paying $10 for every free trialer we send their way. You can imagine a scenario where we go to Apple Music or Google Play or Rhapsody and say, hey, this particular artist is interested in giving you an exclusive for a week or a month. Will you give us a higher bounty than $10 in exchange for that exclusive? So those those are options, not requirements, but the option is there.
And if somebody is signed to a label, is there any potential conflict with being able to utilize one of these apps to distribute their music alternatively?
Not in my case. In my case, we just do that deal with a label.
Potentially. Depends. Depends how it's set up. If the artist just starts and signs up without letting the label know, of course they'll be wondering what, I'm kind of looking forward to that confusion personally, because I think it starts an interesting conversation, because a lot of let's say a signed artist is not putting up their album. And of course, in most contracts, anything you produce during the term of the contract falls under the, jurisdiction of that contract. So anything you produce, you have to go to them if you want to put it out again, etc. But at the same time, labels aren't. Let's just imagine that Instagram monetized itself somehow for the users and the people that were really driving Instagram traffic, major artists or celebrities, and Twitter. Would labels be asking for that content because it's only 30 seconds long, so does it qualify as a stream? And I think in some senses, I just think it's somewhat open to, for a slight debate, a losing debate, but it's still a fun one. But I think labels would be really open to it, because at the end of the day, it's found money, it's additive. And it's also up to the artist and the label and the rights holders what they want to put up. And of course, you know, we want to be in compliance with whatever they've decided to do in the past.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm afraid we're out of time on this one, but
Cool.
thank you so much, both of
Thank
you,
you.
for being here. Once again, Tim Quirk from Freeform Development and Alexander Ebert from Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros and Skrapps. Guys, thank you so much.